Parashat Toldot. How can it be that Rebecca deceives her husband Yitzchak? Assume that she believes that Isaac made a mistake, that he was picking the wrong twin. Well, she had a very good argument to give him. After all, she heard from God that the elder shall serve the younger. Moreover, Esav spurned the birthright. He said, "What good is this birthright for me?" He sold it for some cabbage soup because he was hungry. Believe me, he ate breakfast that morning. And he had just taken 2 Hittite wives, Canaanite wives, which was the real intermarriage in the biblical period. So she had a very good argument to use. Why doesn't she use it? Why does she send Jacob on a ruse to dress up like Esau and to pretend to be Esau and to wrest the blessings from Isaac through trickery rather than confront her husband and speak to her and speak to him? I want to attempt a response, and it's on the basis of a marvelous interpretation by the Malbim and a little bit of Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch. The Malbim says that that conversation took place. It's inconceivable that she would go ahead with an act of deceit and not try frontally to convince her husband. She gave him all the arguments. And according to the Malbim, he answered. Isaac answered. He said to her, "What do you think? I'm really blind inside as well as outside. You think I don't know my children? I know my children very, very well. And I have 2 sons. I have a very aggressive son. And that's Esau. He's a hunter. He's an outdoorsman. He's physical. And he gets what he's after. And then I have another son, Yankala, Ishtam Yoshev Ohalim, wholehearted and pure and sits in the Beis Medrash all day. And he's different. He likes to study. He doesn't care much about physical things. Now, I have to give over the legacy of the Bechorah, of the firstbornship of the Jewish people. Who's going to be the next leader? And the Jewish nation requires 2 things. It requires compassion. It requires a leader who understands what God wants, compassionate righteousness and moral justice. But it also requires strength. Because one who wants compassionate righteousness has to fight against injustice. And that requires strength and even military might, and certainly material resources. And that's not Yaakov. That's not Yankala. You give him a Uzi, he'll probably trip over it. You talk to me about the stock market, he won't know the first thing to do with it. So I figured out that I have 2 things to give. I have the blessings, what's physical, material, and I have the spiritual. What was given to Abraham, compassionate righteousness and moral justice. I'm going to give the spiritual to the spiritual son, and I'll save it for him. And now I'm giving the physical blessings to the more materialistic physical son. Rebecca, however, countered And she said, no, no, my beloved husband, that's not right for you to do. Because Torah needs a material underpinning. Torah needs PR. Torah needs the internet. Torah needs all modern trappings. Even the yeshiva needs a dormitory. It needs food. And the students have to be fed and clothed and taken care of if they're to really learn and ultimately teach. The same son has to get both things. And Isaac argued no. Can't do it that way. Yankele won't know what to do with the physical blessing. And therefore here is what really, and now enter Samson Raphael Hirsch, here is what Rebecca really wanted to do. She didn't want to deceive her husband. She understood that from an hour to 24 hours after the ruse would take place and the blessings would be given to Jacob under false pretenses, Esau would come back from the hunt with his venison meat. And he'd want to know what's happening. And it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. So she knew that her husband would find out. And Rebecca, if anything, she was a very wise woman. So she knew exactly what this meant. She didn't want to deceive him. She wanted to prove to him that if Jacob wanted something badly enough, he would be able to use the hands of Esau to get it. That he wasn't such a chnun who sits in the Beis Medrash all day. He would be able to use the hands of Esau successfully. And that's exactly what happened. Isaac gives the blessing that he thinks is the physical blessing only to the son who believes is Esav. The dew of the heavens and the fat of the land. He always saved the spiritual blessing of Abraham for Jacob, which he gives to Jacob at the end of the portion of Toldot, when Jacob leaves for Laban land. But his wife did successfully prove to him that Jacob could don the physical outer trappings of Esau if he needed it. And therefore, when he found out what happens, he says, Gam Baruch Yihye, indeed, Jacob will also get the blessing of the firstbornship. He'll get it all, the physical blessings and the spiritual blessings as well. Shabbat Shalom.